clear up the stage, just a quick show of hands. How many have had a formal briefing about ONDC? All right. We at least have 2-3 hands. There used to be a time when there would be no hands, so I'll be making progress. That's good to see. It's going to take more than 10 minutes to actually explain what ONDC is all about, so I won't do that today. What I will focus on is on what is it that we are doing in terms of resources or activities to help companies like yourselves succeed in online shopping through our network. I'll just wait for them to load up. Cool. So really our goal is to build a vibrant digital commerce universe, starting with India, but eventually globally. Just so you know, we are not just a B2C activity, we are B2B. We get several thousand orders a day of B2B. And we've also done our first international transaction and we are ramping that up. So this is starting with India, but not limited to India. And what we basically attempting to do is to decentralize e-commerce so that it's not dependent on any one party, dependent on any one central infrastructure, and make it accessible to everyone. And the variety of sellers, you obviously have the usual suspects, but from the small auto rickshaw driver to a handicraft maker to a handcart vendor, all of them are now live on our network, and then you can actually place orders. So the reach of this network is not meant to be limited to known standard brands, but to go to every person or every individual or every organization that is a seller of any kind. There are major brands that are live on the network across categories and sectors, and more importantly, appropriate for today's conversation, there are many D2C brands that are also live on the network, again across sectors. So the network isn't limited to any one kind or one category or one sector. It is flexible and enabling multiple networks. So let me talk about 10 things that we are doing as an organization to help anybody who wants to sell succeed. The first is education. And that's really about explaining what this whole unbundled, open way of doing commerce is. Why is it different from existing forms of e-commerce? And how does it help anybody succeed far better and far wider than they would be able to with any platform approach? That's the current world of e-commerce. The second area that we are helping is if you're there as a seller. Now, if you're a large company, you can probably connect with the network yourself, right? You do not need any other assistance. But if you are a small seller, you do not want to get into the technology of getting connected to the network, getting into the operations of responding to the network. You simply want to sell your product. So for that, we need participants on the network who can play the onboarder. And while in theory, any onboarder can onboard any kind of seller, but in reality, they tend to specialize in certain sectors, sometimes in special geographies, because part of the digitization, part of the onboarding is digitization of catalog. And so once you build an expertise in a particular area, whether it is financial services or grocery or fashion, then that becomes your way of onboarding. Which means that for us to onboard multiple sectors, we need to onboard a variety of participants who can help that particular sector. B2B is different from B2C, and there is also a need for geographic density, because a lot of these organizations, and maybe similar to yours, are not large manpower organizations. They're not tens of thousands of people in a company. They're actually very, very small teams. And so these small teams cannot go to the length and breadth of the country for onboarding. So developing these partners in every geography, in every state, through a variety of tools, participation of state government, creating hackathons, becomes a way of enabling this onboarding at scale. Think about what happened when you got your Aadhaar card. There were Aadhaar booths all across the country, which is why you could do it. Imagine if you had to go to, let's say we have 35 states and union territories, there was one office in each state where you had to go and apply, how difficult that would have been. And so we're trying to help the reach by creating a broader set of onboarders, partly encouraging participation and partly building the technology for it. Third area is creating the network itself to support good business practices. One of the first questions we get asked is in this whole unbundled way of doing commerce, who will handle the complaint, right? So if I place an order through one application, the seller is on a second application, they've ordered delivery through a third application, and my product doesn't reach me, now who do I call? That tends to be one of the first questions to ask. Well, the answer to that is very simple. You talk to the application, you place the order. But that's not all, right? It's because that application also needs tools and resources to make sure that they can back you up. So creating an issue grievance management framework whereby digitally messages can go back and forth in milliseconds across the network and enable the buyer application to serve you well is one example. Digital payments for commerce don't go as simply as physical payments. Right? If you walk into a shop, you're buying a 10 rupee bottle of water, you'll pay 10 rupees, he gives you a bottle of water and you're done. Nothing very complicated. But that person is also at the end of the year filing for taxes. Now, online, what happens is everything is taking place at the same time. At the moment you're paying money, there is TDS, there is GST to being paid. And so the money that the consumer is paying has to be divided into multiple parts and paid. A small seller can't handle that. Importantly, if you build a cart with buying from multiple seller applications, then there are multiple settlements to take place. So building a standard reconciliation framework, RSF or reconciliation services framework that allows parties to settle easily becomes another one. How do you trust a seller? Well, sometimes you may know the seller, you might know the brand. Sometimes you might need the assistance of an additional badge or a validator. Right? So we see websites that have a verification sign on them. Similarly, imagine if you could have a seller with some sort of verification. It could be a mark like a craft mark. It could be a GI tag. It could be support from the organization that is funding them. Something could be SIDBI supported. Something could be Tata Trust supported. So having an additional badge that allows you to trust. All these components, so grievance management, settlement, badging, etc. These are all part of network resources that we are creating to help transaction being more trustworthy and stronger. Fourth, digital marketing. Now, one of the problems of existing e-commerce structure is it has made marketers lazy, because all it requires is you list yourself somewhere and then you pay some money for your ranking and you're sort of done. And you're completely dependent on the algorithm, and if it ended up costing more, then it ended up costing more, right? You shrug your shoulders. Now, that's because a couple of platforms in every sector pretty much hold the sway for that set of goods and services. But in an open network, now it's somewhat back to the good old days of yore, where a seller can now control their amount of cost, the market that they are serving, and be able to market their product on their own terms and conditions. One very simple truth is anybody who makes any product, and that includes the D2C brands here, has identified something that could be done better. That's why they build that product. That's why they build the brand. Even a service provider, like an auto rickshaw driver, has started in that because he believes there's a demand for it. So everyone has created their product or service with conviction in the demand for that product. But what e-commerce drags everything to is a question of deals and discounts. That's not why these services were created. And so the ability to market your product now is available on the network, and anybody you market to can directly buy from you. It will not be distracted or sidetracked to a different path. So helping people understand digital marketing capabilities. And we are also enlisting support from other organizations. So Meta has stepped forward and said we will provide support in terms of credits on the social media platforms that they manage and enable these sellers to do their digital marketing. Fifth, financial assistance. There are a lot of government schemes, some come from ministries, some come from state governments for the purpose of digitization. And so we become the bridge organization that as people come on board, they're able to tap into these schemes and avail of the financial assistance being provided so that you have a head start in doing your business. In some cases, it might be a philanthropic organization. So a lot of the social sector work that we do comes supported by philanthropic organizations. So creating the bridge between sources of funds and beneficiaries of funds in a commerce network, because here the visibility is straight. Right? Many times people are concerned about putting up money because they do not know where it is going and what is being done with it, whereas here the impact of that funding is very clear, and so that creates a much greater confidence and comfort in contributing. Sixth is technical support. Now, we are a country of technically smart resources, but nevertheless, the act of integrating, as anybody who's done it, understands that there are steps to be done, and sometimes there may be gaps that need to be filled in. And so we are not letting companies be on their own. We have technical resources that we provide, either our team members or agencies that we have trained and onboarded that are available for participants to fast track their journey and coming on board. We also provide not just technical support, but we also provide operational support. So if you've never done operational business and you want to understand what is going wrong, fill rates are not good, tracking is not coming through, deliveries are taking longer. If you want to solve those, then we provide operational support resources also. 7, community building. Some things work better when you gather people together. That's true in case of farmers. So farmers individually often may not have the scale, but farm producer organizations do. And so working with FPOs and enabling farmers to come onto the network, working with artisan clusters. Often a particular skill is a specialty of a geography, and we can find a broader cluster and therefore be able to create a much greater assortment and capacity. Creating clusters of demand, working with societies through housing applications. So creating clusters that enable fast tracking of demand and supply is another area that we help with. Number 8, ease of onboarding and the user experience. So user experience on both sides. How does a buyer shop and how does a seller onboard? And to ensure that the applications that are doing it are as good as the industry standard. And where needed, we also start building SDKs and components that can be plugged in to improve that experience for everybody. Self-promotion tools, we've just testing our shopping QR code. So the UPI QR code is well known and popular. Every shop has a QR code which you scan to pay money, but it's only for payment. There is no standard QR code on which you can find a shop, see its catalog and be able to shop. So we've now completed the technical development of it. We are piloting it in some stores, and very soon we will have shopping QR codes in every store where you can either save it, or at the moment you're in the shop also you can scan and place an order. You don't have to queue up, you can make your payment and simply collect it at convenience and go. Which will also allow then sellers to be able to market themselves, to be able to share. Before we had digital marketing, we had phone numbers. And think about anybody, any seller who has a phone number, right? You do everything you can to popularize that number. It's on your business card, it's at the end of your email, it's on the name mast of your store, it's probably in multiple places, and you're popularizing that number. So the moment somebody has a number, they can call you. Well, the QR code is the equivalent of a phone number. Now you share that QR code with anybody, and people can just simply scan and place an order on you. A lot of sellers have been very, very enterprising, including in the farm sector. They simply collect their historical customer's phone number, create a WhatsApp group, and start sharing updates on their product, and are able to drive orders directly without being dependent on any e-commerce platform in between. And finally, performance analytics. Today, sellers do not get access to their own data. All they will know is the product that they've sold. They don't even know who the customer is. Whereas in an open network, to have access, first of all, to your own data, if nothing else, simply to manage your inventory. So just look at your historical past 7-8 week order pattern, weekend, weekday, morning, evening, and you will now have a digital validation of what you might have been doing intuitively. And as sellers come online and start interacting, the need to be accurate with this becomes very important, because if you accept an order and then you discover you don't have the product and you can't fulfill it in time, you will get a black mark online. Physically, you're still okay, because if a customer walks in, you can send your chotu and say, market se leke aa jao. You can probably still satisfy that customer. You don't have that luxury online. So helping people understand how they are performing in very simple, easy ways by which they can expand their assortment, improve their operations, and in general do business with greater excellence are some of the ways. So these are just 10 of them, and I'm sure as we work with you, we'll have more to add to the list. But the goal is anybody who has anything to sell in this country, regardless of product, regardless of service, should be able to be on the network, regardless of where you are on the chain. So today farmers are buying seeds and saplings and fertilizers on the network. They are selling their produce to food producing companies, who are in turn selling to brands, who are making a finished product, who are selling to consumers. Right? That entire chain is available. Distributors are selling FMCG products to retailers, retailers are selling to consumers. So every leg of transaction is now live. These are not theory, future state. This is current. We have taxis, auto rickshaws, metros. So in cities like Kochi and Chennai, you can actually do all 3 legs of your transport: home to metro station, metro ticket to destination, auto rickshaw from there to your destination, all in a single cart. Add to cart, check out, you have all the 3 tickets and you're ready to go. These are not even possible on existing e-commerce marketplaces, because each is a specialist in one area. And so this is an exciting, wonderful journey. We will not build it, we will simply help you. We are expecting you to build it. So I look forward to working with all of you in the times to come. Thank you.